we're here with Dylan Steer today. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Of course.
I'm really excited to hear more about what you do. So I guess to start, I would love to just have a brief overview of just like, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about, what your job is a little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I am the Sustainability and Solid Waste Coordinator for the Town of Mansfield. So with that, I have kind of two roles. I handle the solid waste aspect, so trash and recycling pickup for single-family, multifamily homes. I administer our Pay-As-You-Throw program, and then Sustainability Coordinator. So all the programs that have to do with sustainability, composting in the schools. I run the Sustainability Committee as their staff person. I'm also on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
So a lot of different things.
It's a very, broad role, and I really like that about my job.
Yeah.
I can do a lot of different kinds of
So I'm sure you're
stuff.
pretty busy a lot.
Pretty busy, yeah.
So you said something about Pay-As-You-Throw program. You want us to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's a really important thing that people be aware of, like as municipalities have this option. So Mansfield is pretty unique in Connecticut. We are one of two, I believe, towns in the whole state who have a pay-as-you-throw system for our trash. So what that basically means is that you pay for trash as a utility. So the way it works in Mansfield is we have different sizes for trash cans, and depending on the size of bin that you choose, you pay a different amount. So you're paying for more trash if you're throwing away more, less if you're throwing away less. Recycling comes free with the service, and it's the trash that you pay for. And I think people don't realize how expensive trash is, especially in Connecticut. Right now, we ship out about 40% of our trash out of state, and with incinerators and landfills being closed down in Connecticut, that number is only going to get bigger in terms of cost. So I think it's something that a lot of municipalities should be looking at adopting, and not just having it lumped into your taxes like most municipalities do.
Yeah. And then also, I know you recently graduated UConn, in 2025. So I'd love to know kind of the process of, getting hired, finding a job, and like what path led you to this career.
Yeah. So, that's a great question. I think, I graduated with environmental studies and political science degrees. So I always knew that I wanted to work in some kind of policy realm, work in my local area, work on a state level. And yeah, it was really tough graduating in 2025, in a time when a lot of, funding has been pulled for a lot of sustainability programming, a lot of environmental grants going away. So the job market was not great. But luckily here in Mansfield, this position opened up. The previous person who was in my position, Virginia Walton, she had this job for 35 years. She started recycling in Mansfield back in the 90s, and she's built an incredible program over her tenure. And she decided to retire and pass it on. I saw the job and I applied, and I was lucky enough to get it. And I had worked with municipalities and their sustainability before through Sustainable CT. I was a fellow with them for 2 years.
Okay.
So I learned a lot about how municipalities kind of function and how how sustainability kind of factors into their operations.
It's awesome. And then I'd love to know just a little bit about, what your everyday life looks like in this job, like what roles there are and like everything like that.
Yeah. So it's different every day. I'd say that there is sort of a pattern to it. So Monday morning, so here in Mansfield, we have a 4-day work week, which is great.
Awesome.
I work longer hours every day, but I have a 3-day weekend every week. So on Monday, I have a lot of emails, a lot of calls waiting for me from residents asking with issues about their trash service, people trying to sign up for trash service, people canceling. So I have to get through those emails. I have to call residents back. So that takes up, a big portion of my time, especially on those Monday mornings. But, other times after that, I can focus on some projects that I'm working on. So, for example, right now, a big project that Mansfield is moving towards is expanding our composting. So at our transfer station, which I go to every Tuesday as well to pick up the recyclable plastic bags. Right there, we're building a ASP compost system, an aerated static pile, so it can go through compost a lot faster and hopefully eventually move towards a curbside compost program. So right now we're in the process of designing and building that facility essentially. And
Cool.
So that's been taking up some of my time, and it's been something that's really been cool. So projects like that, as well as that, bread and butter dealing with residents on the phone over email.
I'm sure the projects portion is probably more fun than the other part.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any other like projects that you've worked on since you've been here that like you're proud of that really like made you feel like you made an impact?
Yeah, I think something that you wouldn't expect is kind of like video content. I think stuff like this is great. I see kind of half of my role in being a sustainability person as being a communicator of these kinds of ideas to the public that they ought to know about, like what are the sustainability best practices that I should be aware of, what state program should I be aware of. So I've been doing a lot of video programs on the Facebook just to get people to know what's going on in the town, communicating that, and hopefully bringing that forward into other kinds of cool stuff like clean energy, composting, kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess my next question might be like, if you had to give advice to someone who's still in school, who wants to go into a job similar to yours, like what kind of advice would you give them? And what would you want to say to yourself like 3 years ago too?
Yeah. I think that, look for opportunities where they present themselves. I mean, when I was at UConn, I was very involved in activism surrounding clean energy.
So you have EcoHusky.
At EcoHusky, I was a member and the president of it for 2 years. So I got to know that space pretty intimately. And that knowledge that I got from that work very much translated to what I'm doing now. There was some individual classes that I took, like stormwater infrastructure, green stormwater infrastructure, that I've been able to use a lot in my skill set. So building out that skill set and looking for those kinds of things specifically helped me a lot. And yeah, I think for people interested in looking for this kind of work, it's tough. I would say Mansfield is a really great place that has
looks like you have so many cool programs.
A lot of cool stuff, but a lot of places aren't that lucky. But to that, I would say, like, try and find your, solid waste advisory board. If there's a sustainability, clean energy task force, be engaged with that, try and understand, and frankly, try and make some positions for yourself, because a lot of these towns, they don't have positions like mine. I think a lot of them ought to. I don't know. It's tough, but know your stuff, I would say.
And do you think there's like, what do you think has been the biggest like learning curve that you faced since starting this job?
I think it has honestly not much to do with the job itself. It's just been getting used to the work schedule. Being a student for so long, it's a certain way of operating. I've had to get used to, certain hours every single day.
Working in the summer.
Trying to find a good balance between my work and my personal life. But I think that's something that everyone our age is going to have to go through.
Yeah.
That's not a unique experience at all.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, obviously you've worked so much with like sustainability and like you've been in this space for a long time, you've been in college. What do you think is like maybe a misconception that people have about it that you would want to disprove and to tell people?
Yeah, I think that there's two things that come to mind. One is that sustainability is really a privileged thing. And it's kind of something that, some people do and they can have it as their passion project, but it's not really going to affect me. I think that's hugely wrong way of thinking about things. I think that sustainability is in everything. It's in every aspect of town operations, in every aspect of how a business operates. Because sustainability fundamentally is not just about the environment. It's about if you can do things for a long period of time and sustain it and keep going. And looking at things holistically, right? Does this make sense? Can we keep going? Can we keep operating? And then sort of in tandem with that is if that like sustainability programs are more expensive. It's more expensive to do things a certain way. I would say that's not true. I mean, when you look at how trash and recycling operates, for instance, recycling is leagues cheaper than trash because these items can be reused. They can be put into new things. Composting, much, much, much cheaper than shipping everything to an incinerator or a landfill.
Really? I didn't know that.
And logically, I think it makes sense because if you can continue operating things over a long period of time, it makes much more sense than doing things short term and creating a lot of waste and not really planning for things long term.
Yeah. And, let's say that there's a town who wasn't really as involved in like, the whole sustainability thing. And like, wasn't good with recycling. What do you think is a good place for a town or a community to start? Something that's easy and something that could make a difference too.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of where I am trying to operate as, is to try and find those like low hanging fruit for sustainability. So in terms of waste and the waste stream, looking at organics, looking at food waste, food scraps, finding ways to redirect that from trash and into, compost. That's one area that I would look at. If it's recycling specifically, that's really tough. I mean, because we contract with a company to do our trash recycling pickup, and it's really a regional thing. In Eastern Connecticut, we have Casella. In Western Connecticut, a lot of municipalities do it on their own. They have to source their own places where each recycling item goes to. So it's a lot of work, but I think putting in that work is worth it, and trying to collaborate as much as possible regionally, statewide, in your local communities.
Yeah.
Not to try and throw out as many buzzwords as possible, but like it's really important to try to put in the work and actually do that stuff, because the path of least resistance is often the more difficult one in the end.
Do you think there's like any specific challenges that like Mansfield and maybe other towns are facing right now that, you'd like more people to know about?
I think some of the stuff that I mentioned earlier about waste and the waste crisis in Connecticut.
Yeah.
I think Mansfield has done a very good job of incentivizing people to throw away less with the pay-as-you-throw program. But I think it's a looming crisis. It's a crisis that we're going through right now. But the reason I say looming is because a lot of the prices for trash are locked in contracts. But those contracts are coming up all over the state for municipalities. And those prices for trash are going to go way, way, way up because, there's just nowhere to put our trash in the state anymore. So looking at ways that we can reduce our trash, reduce waste, that's something that I think more towns should be looking at seriously, and something that the state should be looking at a lot more seriously.
I'd love to know like where you see the future, what you want to see in the next like 10 years or so for not only Mansfield, but the rest of Connecticut, the rest of the country in terms of like sustainability and composting, all those things.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think trying to get away from the systems that we have built up in terms of like fossil fuels, in terms of how the waste stream operates, breaking away from those systems is difficult, but it's the only sustainable path forward. So I would love to see the energy composition that the state uses be brought down from natural gas, be increased in renewables, be increased in nuclear. That's a really difficult thing to actually try and implement, but it's something that we should be trying to do a lot with a lot more force than we are at the moment.
For sure.
And especially in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I think it's
If every Connecticut resident could just take one action to make a positive environmental impact, what would you tell them?
I'm going to cheat and say two. I'm going to say recycling and composting.
Okay.
I think that's getting things out of the trash. It's not only just a landfill issue. It's not just a cost issue. It's a climate action too, because every single thing that you throw in the trash, it has to be either shipped somewhere, which takes carbon, or it's getting incinerated, which also produces a lot of carbon.
I think being mindful about what you're buying in the first place is
absolutely
too.
Yeah, I think consuming less. Yeah, that's a big thing. I think approaching sustainability as a lifestyle choice is something that I would really love people to do a lot more, and it's hard to do in our society. Obviously, it's not how we are geared to operate. Things come in cardboard boxes, things come in plastic packaging. Food is, all nicely packaged for us, and it takes work to not contribute to these intensive, carbon-intensive systems.
Do you think that the process of recycling the way it is now is like pretty sustainable? Like recycling practices as a whole? Like I don't really know how recycling works that much, I guess.
Yeah, I would say, it's a complicated system because it's so regionally different. Right. So I was actually at the recycling facility this morning, and they were talking about all of their different sources. So cardboard, they all get put in these big, like Wally, these big cubes. So like the aluminum gets all sold back to the manufacturers of soda cans and whatnot. and like plastic. Some of the plastic, like milk jug kind of plastic, they have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. The different types are much more valuable than others. So I think having a more, all this to say is I think having a more standardized recycling process,
countrywide.
I think countrywide, statewide, rather than maybe putting all the onus on the municipalities to find where they put their recycling and trash. I think that would help a lot, and to have these companies who are taking the trash and taking the recycling be watched and making sure that they are mindful and aware of what all this is going for, and really ensuring that it's a safe process, it's a positive process. But it's tough because the infrastructure is not there.
Right. I think another problem might be too, like, consumers themselves are not educated about what is actually recyclable. And my mom, do you know what Blue Earth is? It's like we use that
compost.
Which is great, but that's compost. But with recycling, like, me and my dad even sometimes don't know, like, is this recyclable or not? I think, educating people is probably could be important too.
Education is definitely a component of it. I think plastics is the main issue with recycling in terms of like, what is not or what is, because it is so confusing. There's all these numbers on the packaging, which looks exactly the same as the recycling symbol. And then there's a different recycling system for this is recyclable, it's not. It's like, what? Like, this is all what?
Yeah.
The general rule is like, if it's a rigid plastic, if it's not like a bag, it can be recycled. If it's a plastic bag, certain like grocery stores will take back the stretchy kinds, and they can be recycled.
But a lot of the time they can't.
And it's also questionable to what extent they're actually being recycled, and to what they're being turned into. So plastic is the main thing.
And what about
the issue?
But milk cartons and cardboard, that can be recycled?
Yes, milk cartons depends on where you are. In Eastern Connecticut, Casella, they can recycle it, because the trouble with milk packages specifically is like it's cardboard, but there's also like a paper and wax coating inside of it. Most things with wax coating are not recyclable. So if you get like a coffee cup, like a Dunkin' coffee cup, that's not recyclable.
Wow.
Plastic ones are, but like for the hot drink ones are not.
Oh, like are those styrofoam or no?
Styrofoam is never recyclable.
Yeah,
but
which is another problem.
Right. But like the paper ones that you would get for a hot drink.
Yeah.
Because of the wax coating, they're not recyclable. But like milk cartons, they have a process for specifically that to recycle them in certain places. Yeah. Which is another thing.
And like we're in Connecticut, I don't know much about like other parts of the country, like maybe in the South or like other, I don't know how developed they are, maybe literally less developed than here. Yeah. That's definitely a problem too. I guess another question I'd have would be like, for someone in high school or college who might want to know, like, what skills did you learn in college or high school that translated well into your job now?
Yeah. I mean, there's the general skills of just like people skills and writing that have gone into what I do now. But I think more specifically, I guess understanding systems, understanding how things operate, and that's very vague and it's very applicable to all kinds of industries. But I think like specifically in this case, in what I do, understanding how the trash system works, how the waste stream works, how energy works, how clean, or the pros and cons of clean energy versus fossil fuels. I think that kind of knowledge base has really sharpened my ability to conduct myself. If it's whether it's in my committee meetings, if it's in conversations with town council people, or if it's in conference or whatnot.
I do think like being an expert in your field is like the best thing you can do. Do you think that the most knowledge you've gained through the years has been through like maybe classes you've taken or being an EcoHusky or being a sustainable CT fellow? Like, what do you think was the most valuable thing that you've done?
I think the most valuable has been the stuff that I've taught myself. Not in terms of like I'm going on YouTube to look at things, which is sometimes the case, but it's things that I've had a passion for and things that I've had a reason to look into is the stuff that stuck with me. So a lot of the things around clean energy, because I was involved in trying to get UConn to use more clean energy versus the natural gas system that they're using now, because I was very engaged with trying to get that process through, I learned a lot about what it takes to, power a campus, what it takes to, power a grid, what that means. I think, engaging in things that you have genuine interest in, and
Definitely. Because that's what sticks with you too.
What can
When you think about like memory, it's like you always end up just remembering things that you actually cared about.
Right.
So that definitely makes sense.
Is there anything else you'd want to like share or say, or do you think we did most of it?
Join your local sustainability or clean energy task force. Look what's going on in your town, and stay engaged locally, I would say.